Well, hi, welcome everybody to our NCO webinar. I'm Kath Arledge, I'm the Artistic and Educational Director of NCO, and I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted to be joined today by Sarah Willis and Jonathan Kelly, and they're going to introduce themselves in a minute. Now, we are welcoming today to this webinar all our NCO children, the huge family that is NCO. So we've got all the senior orchestra children, the junior orchestra children, and all the regional children being invited to join us today. So a huge welcome to all of you. Now, in order to be really interactive in this webinar, there's two things that you can do. First of all, you can send us your questions that I will do my best to ask Sarah and Jonathan by hovering on the bottom of the screen here. You'll see a Q&A button, and then you can type in, a box will pop up and you can type in and send us your questions. And we will do our very best to answer as many of those questions as we can in the time that we've got. We've got 45 minutes. Oh, I can see we've already got a question already. My goodness. Okay. And
that's a good one.
It's a good one, I'm sure it is. And then the other thing you're going to be able to do is vote on some polling. So some fun polls are going to pop up and you're going to be able to vote on various things so we can find out some really exclusive and juicy facts about these two guests that we've got that you wouldn't be able to find anywhere else in the world today. So guys, can you kick off? Jonathan, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everybody. My name's Jonathan Kelly. I grew up in Northamptonshire, so halfway between Northampton and Oxford. And since 2003, I have been living here in Berlin because I am the solo oboist of the Berliner Philharmoniker. That's it.
Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Johnny. It's so nice to see you. We haven't seen each other in weeks. It's so nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Kath. And hi to all of you out there. I'm Sarah Willis. I play the French horn in the, I say Berlin Philharmonic. I just like it better in English. It sounds better like that. I grew up all over the world. Berliner Philharmoniker. I grew up all over the world. My dad was a journalist, so we lived in many different countries, but then we settled in Surrey, and my mum and my sister still live in Esher, but I'm in Berlin at my home now and missing playing in the orchestra a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure we all are missing playing music with our friends. Now, strange times, we're in lockdown. Jonathan, how have you been spending your time?
Well, I was very lucky at the beginning of this whole lockdown thing to watch, I don't know why, but on YouTube, this video came up of a piano teacher giving tips, and I clicked on it, and it was only about 10 minutes long. And he said, look back on this time and be proud of how you used your time. So I have a timetable. I get up very early. I wake up with the birds and I do all the various things I have to do. I take my dog for a walk. Then I do my oboe practice. And then I'm not allowed to do anything that's fun until I finish my oboe practice. And fun for me is working in my garden. So I've been in my garden most of the time in the afternoons after I've done everything else. What else have I been doing? Well, I've got my wife and my two of my three children here, and my dog Harry, who you might get to meet later.
Brilliant. So Sarah, tell us how are you spending your time at the moment?
Gosh, I better make something up now so that I sound as good as Jonathan. I would love to be that disciplined. I've been so busy though. It's been absolutely crazy because I do a lot of online music communication and running a series called the Horn Hangouts. We were streaming every day. Now we're streaming 3 times a week to horn players all over the world, trumpet players, trombone players. And that's taken up, to be honest, a lot of time. I tried to get my horn practice done before any of that. It hasn't been easy, and it's also very difficult for me to practice here because I live in an apartment block and I'm in the top attic apartment, and so literally everyone can hear me when I practice. Usually I practice during the day and there's no one there, but everyone can hear me. I think they're getting a bit tired of do 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 do. But they're very nice. They're very nice. So my days have been filled with horn, have been filled with live streaming and trying to keep the horn community connected. And I've been very inspired by the people I've had as my guests on the Horn Hangout. So that's kept me inspired. And we had a big hangout about etudes, about studies. and everybody bought their favorite study books and said, oh, this is my favorite study because, and that was such a help, because now my floor, you can't see this here, but my floor is completely covered in all my study books. So I've been learning all sorts of different ones.
That's impressive. I'm impressed.
Yeah,
so our very first question that's come in, Finn has said, do you guys speak or have to speak German in the orchestra in your rehearsals?
Good
Do you want to do that, Jonathan?
You don't have to, but a lot of the time, well, you want to. It's a mix, to be honest. Some conductors, when they come and rehearse, don't speak German. So the whole rehearsal will be done in English. But you would always talk to your friends around you in German, if they're German. But because we're a very international orchestra, for example, on my right in the orchestra, I have a French flute player who doesn't really speak German, so I'll speak to him in English. And then...
Good French. Johnny speaks really good French.
Oh yes, peut-être en français. But then on my left, all the rest of the oboe section are all German, so I would always speak to them in German. And I'm sure, I mean, Sarah's German is a million times better than mine. After a while, though, when you're at work, you don't really think about it. If you're in a group with people, you don't even have to think to yourself, am I going to speak German or am I going to speak English? It just comes naturally, doesn't it, Sarah?
We speak Dinglish, don't we, Johnny? And we speak English
We
to each
do,
other,
yeah.
but we use words like, there's a word for traffic jam in German, is Stau, and it's such a good word. So, oh, Johnny, were you in a Stau today?
Yeah.
So we speak this weird mixture, but so Simon Rattle, who was our principal conductor for 17 years, he did quite well. It took him a long time to learn German, but he could never get his numbers right. In German, you say, like if you say 21, it's 21, 1 and 20, or 35, 35, 5 and 30. Simon would always mix them up. So for 35, he'd say 53. So by his last few years, he'd say, okay, we're going from 53. So the orchestra would go from figure 35 because we knew that's what he actually meant.
That's true. Yeah.
Amazing. So I'm going to screen share a little picture of you guys when you were young. And if you could just quickly give us a summary of just a very quick kind of journey, your kind of musical educational journey. So here comes a picture.
Oh, Johnny, you look so sweet.
How old were you, Sarah, when that was taken?
I was 14. I just started playing the horn, and my family said we were on holiday in Shropshire. My family made me practice outside because they said it sounded like a dead elephant.
Well, at least you've still got a photograph of yourself when you were that age. Mine is taken from a newspaper cutting. I must have been, I suppose, 13, perhaps 12 or 13, I don't know. I'd won a local music competition. Yeah, that's right.
You look like Clara. You look like your daughter so much. It's incredible.
Do I?
Enough reminiscing, guys. Tell us about your musical journey and your education. Jonathan, you kick us off.
Okay, so I was not a child prodigy by any stretch of the imagination. I started playing the recorder at school when I was about 7, and my recorder teacher, who was also the headmaster of the school, he told my parents I should give up because I was completely unmusical. And do you know what? He was actually right. I was rubbish at the recorder. And so I gave up, and I didn't care because I didn't really enjoy it very much. So then I didn't do any music for quite a long time. And then when I started at secondary school, so I was 11, that was a time when everyone could have just free musical instrument lessons, and I was offered the opportunity to learn a woodwind instrument. So my dad chose the oboe for me. I'd never heard of an oboe before, but he loved it. He loved the oboe, and he played me a record of the oboe, and I thought, yeah, I like that. I'll start that. So I was taught first of all by a clarinetist. And then,
sorry, Jonathan, because a poll has come in, and it's very apt and apropos what you're talking about, which is your first oboe was called Iona, Mona, Fiona, or Catriona, and everybody's voting.
I
And
can't vote. That's not fair.
oh, sorry, we'll have to organise that next time. But it looks like the voting's still going on, but finish your votes and I'll give you the results in a minute. Anyway, keep going.
So yeah, then I played, you know, through my teens. I was in the county youth orchestra and the county youth wind band, which I loved. And then joined the NYO, and the very first person I met on the NYO was Sarah Willis. Oh, those are the days.
Oh.
And yeah, that was nice meeting Sarah on my first day. I was so shy, I didn't know anyone.
I felt so sorry for him because he was so shy.
You weren't new though, were you? You'd been in it already.
I was already had all my friends.
You knew everybody.
I was nice to you.
So anyway, I was in the NYO for a couple of years, and then I went to Cambridge University and I studied history, kind of, but most of the time I was playing the oboe. And then after that, I went to the Royal Academy of Music in London for a year. And after I finished at the Royal Academy, I went to Paris, to the Paris Conservatoire. I spent a wonderful year in Paris. That was my last year of studies. And then I got a job in the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, which is where I met Kath for the first time, isn't that right? And I was in the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra for 10 years, had lots of fun, amazing concerts, great tours. And then I got the job that I'd always wanted to get when I was a teenager learning, and that was principal over the Berlin Phil. And I've been here ever since. So that was in 2003.
Amazing. So the results have come in on your poll, and 40% think that your first oboe was called Fiona. 23 Mona, 21% Iona, and 15% Catriona. So could you, drum roll, give us the answer? What was your first oboe called?
If you think about it, the sound of the name Mona, it has a sort of double meaning, doesn't it? Mona, and then there's Mona. So that's why I called Mona, because at that time she did sound like she was moaning most of the time. So Mona is the correct answer. Well done, 23% of the people.
Brilliant. So very quickly, Sarah, could you talk us through your education?
Yeah. Well, it was very quick. I played the piano until I was 14, and then I wanted to become a concert pianist. And I was told, we were in England by then, I was told that I needed a second instrument to study at one of the music colleges. So my teacher said I could play the oboe. My parents wanted me to play with the oboe, and there was absolutely no way that I wanted to play the oboe. Sorry, Johnny. It's a great instrument, but I just, because my parents wanted me to do it, I didn't want to do it. So the teacher said, well, we have a French horn, but only the boys play French horn. So I insisted on them letting me try it, and it was love at first note. I played in the Stoneleigh Youth Orchestra, and then in the National Youth Orchestra, and then in the European Community Youth Orchestra, the European Community, EUYO now. Then I studied at the Guildhall. Then I went to Berlin, and I studied for a year privately with Fergus McWilliam, who was the second horn of the Berlin Philharmonic. Then I got a job at the Berlin State Opera under Daniel Barenboim as second horn. And in 2001, I got the job as low horn in the Berlin Philharmonic. And that was a job I never, ever thought I was going to get. And my teacher at school was probably very surprised. But I've been there ever since, and I absolutely love it. And what's this?
Here's another poll, which says, if Sarah wasn't a musician, she'd like to be a Blue Peter presenter, a newsreader, a travel show presenter, an Operation Ouch presenter, or a BBC breakfast host. So
what's Operation Ouch?
Yeah, I don't know that either.
It's a kids show in the UK about hospitals and painful things. And it's very popular, and it's lots of fun.
All right.
So that's a bit of a giveaway if you didn't know what.
That's a bit of a giveaway, isn't it? Okay, guys.
Sorry. Okay, so I've got a question for you, Jonathan, from Ji Yang Wang. In normal times, do you usually practice your own repertoire more or your orchestral repertoire?
Oh, that's a very good question. That depends what the orchestral repertoire is, the time, or what's coming up. I always have an idea of what's planned for the season. So if there is some tricky bits coming up, even if they're quite a long way off, you know, maybe even 8 or 9 months off, but I know they're coming, then I will always just be practicing those a bit, perhaps during my warm-ups, just keep getting them really just sitting under my fingers. So I'm always thinking a little bit about what's coming in the orchestra. But but mostly I would be practicing, yeah, I suppose my own material. So whatever that might be, very limited repertoire, the oboe, but mostly scales and studies, things like that.
Brilliant. Great. I think we've got our poll results in now. So I can tell you that 37% think Sarah would like to be a Blue Peter presenter, followed by 22% breakfast TV host, 20% travel show presenter, 11% newsreader, and 10% Operation Ouch presenter.
I'm going with Blue Peter.
You're going with Blue Peter.
You know,
Drum roll, Sarah.
If I'd known that I could have been a Blue Peter presenter, I would have chosen that over what I actually chose. But I answered the questions you sent me, Kath, really quickly. And I'd like to be a travel show presenter because I love to travel and I love to meet new people. So I thought that'd be really interesting. But I would like to turn that answer around and say I'd like to be a Blue Peter presenter.
Fantastic. Well, great. Everyone guessed
so
really
well done.
So we got a question now from Nina Lunn. Do you want to take this one, Sarah? If you could play any other instrument, what would it be?
Not the oboe.
Not the horn.
No, you know what? People often say that, and they say, "What would you like to play if you came back again and could start all over?" I love the horn. It's part of me. It's part of my body. I love holding it. I love looking at it. I love the sound of it. I think though, if I came back as another musician, I would sing or conduct so that I didn't have to carry the instrument everywhere. That's the only thing that's a real pain, is schlepping my horn all over the place.
Schlepping, that's a German word.
Schlepping, oh yeah, carrying. See, Johnny, that's our Dinglish again.
Yeah.
So I quite fancy, I like the idea of being a conductor. I think that's quite hard though. And singers, I'd like to be a singer if I was really good, but it would be awful to be a bad singer.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's good. Great. So we've got a question now, which you could both answer, but I'll share the digital concert hall in a sec. But Marcus has asked, what's the favorite piece you've played with the Berlin Phil? So have a little think while I share now the digital concert hall, which is this amazing resource that the Berlin Phil have. Can you see that all there now? It's basically a digital resource of loads and loads, I don't know how many, hundreds of recorded concerts that you can watch. And at the moment, the amazing thing about the digital concert hall is that it's completely free. So if you can see that redeem your voucher thing, you could ask your parents.
Only to the end of April, so get in there.
Yeah, so you've got a few more days. You've only got just about a week more to do this, but you can go and look at anything you want to see. And then, so I Googled a concert. So I wanted to see Andres Nelson's playing Strauss's Alpine Symphony. And then I don't know if this is going to work, or they are. A little bit. So
we sit right behind those.
Yeah, amazing. So before we get too emotional about missing concerts, and when I was listening to that, preparing this, I was like, oh no, I really want to be there doing that, listening to that. But so the digital concert hall is an amazing resource. And so why don't you each recommend a concert that the kids could go and watch?
Well,
Sarah, do you want to?
Definitely one of them. Alpine Symphony. Alpine Symphony is such a classic. That's definitely one of them. I love that. That's full of brass, and it's so much fun to play. And you can hear you can hear how Strauss is climbing up the mountain in the fog, and then he gets to the top, and the sun comes out, and it's just brilliant. He goes back down again, and there's a thunderstorm, and you can hear the waterfalls and everything. It's just brilliant. And the oboe gets to play, right, Johnny? Just as you get to the top.
When you get to the top of the mountain and then you're looking around and you feel all alone, that's when the oboe gets to play.
And then the horns come in and ruin that moment. That's definitely one. There's some great education concerts. It's not Christmas, but there's some lovely concerts for children that are dubbed in English. Jonathan and I have actually overdubbed one ourselves. But those are really a lot of fun. The education concerts, even though it's not Christmas, we can have Christmas every day. So I would recommend, so have a look at Alpine Symphony and have a look at some of the education Christmas concerts.
Jonathan?
I think I would say choose a piece that you really like. Let's say, why don't we choose Beethoven Pastoral Symphony, okay? Beethoven Symphony number 6. And then you could actually search that and then listen to maybe the first movement played in 3 different versions. Because if you go into the website of the Digital Concert Hall, there's an enormous archive, like a treasure chest of all these performances. So you could listen to, you know, the first movement of Pastoral Symphony conducted by Simon Rattle or Bernard Haitink, or who else has done Pastoral with us recently?
Simon, I don't know if there's a film of Claudio doing it in there.
Probably,
But
Claudio
Simon's
Abbado.
done it, Haitink's done it. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I've-
But anything, I mean, that's an example. I mean, I love the Pastoral Symphony, but I think it's really interesting to listen to the difference that you can get. And that's, you can really do that on the Digital Concert Hall.
I have one more favorite concert that you should all go and listen to. The last concert I listened to in the Philharmonic as a member of the audience was Jonathan playing the Strauss Oboe Concerto. That's the last time I sat in the hall and listened to a concert, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And I was so proud of this oboe player that I'd met in the NY all these years ago. So go and have a listen to that one as well.
Yeah, well, it was a highlight for me too, that's true.
Okay, talking about highlights, Jonathan. Jonathan used to play, here's another poll. Jonathan used to play in his County Youth Wind Band. His most memorable childhood musical moment was performing The Hills Are Alive from The Sound of Music, I Want to Be Like You from the Jungle Book, Feed the Birds from Mary Poppins, or the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang theme tune. Okay, so everybody's voting on that right now. And
I know what I would vote for.
So we've got a question now from Katie Messenger, who's one of our really youngest bassoonists, an amazing musician, as are all our musicians.
Hi, Katie.
She wants to ask us, anything gone really wrong and been really funny ever in a concert for you, Sarah?
Well, to be honest, if anything goes wrong in a concert with the Berlin Philharmonic, it's not very funny. Because everything we do is filmed and then it's live streamed on the Digital Concert Hall. So I personally don't find it very funny when something goes wrong that I've caused. What have we, I mean, there's sometimes little things that, you know, that'll make you sort of giggle, or the section will giggle, or someone sneezes in exactly the wrong moment or really loudly. We had one sneeze. Of course, you don't sneeze anymore like that, do you? We all sneeze into our elbows. That's going to be something good about this virus, is that when people start going to concerts again, they'll know how often that you mustn't cough loudly. Don't you think, guys? I think this will be a good thing. Yeah. But I remember someone sneezing really loud in exactly the right key of the chord that had just come before. We went, brum, brum, achoo. It was perfect.
What about you, Jonathan? Any awkward, it doesn't have to be with Berlin, of course, but it might have been in a previous life.
Oh, definitely. I can remember very well playing. It was the first time I played at the Proms with the Berlin Phil. So we played The Rite of Spring. You can imagine really, really loud, crash, bang, wallop ending. And then as an encore, we had to play a very soft piece by Eric Satie, Gymnopédie number something. And it's an oboe solo. And my oboe had a little bit of, well, quite a lot of water stuck in one of the tone holes. And it had the effect that every time I played a C, it came out as a B. So it actually just sounded as if I was just playing the wrong note every single time.
Simon was conducting, and Simon was just like, okay, you know, well, then it's a new version.
It was a pretty dreadful moment. But, you know, with all of those things that happen afterwards, there does come a point where you can laugh about it. So I didn't feel great at the time, but I've got over it now.
Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a result of the poll. So let's see. At the top, most people think I Want to Be Like You from the Jungle Book was the tune. Then that was 34%. 33% say Chitty Chitty Bang Bang theme. 23% say The Hills Are Alive from the Sound of Music. And only 9% say Feed the Birds from Mary Poppins. So drum roll, Jonathan, what's the answer?
Very interesting. Well, actually, that 9% are right.
Hey!
Feed the Birds, tuppence a bag. It was the first ever solo I had to play. So, I mean, it would have been nice if it was I Want to Be Like You from the Jungle Book, but it wasn't. It was Mary Poppins.
What about you, Sarah? What would have been your favorite out of those?
Well, I would have wanted to do I Want to Be Like You. And I thought Johnny's would have been The Hills Are Alive, because we're both huge Sound of Music fans. And when we go on tour to Salzburg, we stay in a hotel where they show the Sound of Music 24 hours a day in a loop. And we always run and say, oh, what bit have you seen today? So we like that hotel.
Brilliant. Okay, Jonathan, do you want to tell us, we've got a question from Eleanor Biles. What is the best venue that you've ever played in?
Oh, okay. Hello, Eleanor. My oldest daughter's called Eleanor as well. The best venue I've ever played in, there are so many wonderful concert halls in the world. I love the Philharmonic in Berlin, but everyone gives that answer. So I'm going to try and think of a different hall that I also love. Do you know what? I just love playing in the Royal Albert Hall, the Proms, because the building is like no other. It's so beautiful. And the atmosphere is always amazing. And I love the fact that the Prommers are all standing up in the middle and they've been queuing all day and you get the whole atmosphere in the building. So I love the Royal Albert Hall.
Great, brilliant. Okay, we've got another question from Carlotta. Maybe Sarah, you can take this. What is daily life as an orchestral musician like? Do you just practice and go to rehearsals all the time?
Basically, yes. A normal day for us at the Berlin Phil would be, we have 2 rehearsals a day, one at 10 and one at 4 o'clock. Then they last 2.5 hours. So I'm there at 9 o'clock because us horn players have to warm up. As all the horn players watching know, we have to get all our lips buzzing. So we get there about 9, we warm up, have a cup of tea, and then we go and do our rehearsal. 12:30, then we have some lunch, and usually the afternoons we teach or we rehearse some chamber music, or we're right on the Tiergarten, which is a big park. So Johnny likes to go out for a walk in the break, and then we have another rehearsal at 4, and then it finishes at 6:45. So by that time the day's finished, and you go home and you've got your dinner and your emails, and so the days are really packed actually when we're working. We have 4 rehearsals, 1 dress rehearsal, and 3 concerts, and that's our week. It's busy.
Amazing. Could you tell me a little bit about how, because an orchestra is a group of a lot of musicians, that you have to sort of be a team and stop being an individual sometimes, and then other times you have to kind of step out and be really unique and individual. How do you, Jonathan, how do you find that kind of ducking in and out of those 2 roles?
I enjoy doing that. I enjoy being a team player and then getting my moment to shine. I think that the answer to that question is different for every player, because I play solo oboe, which means by definition I have solos to play. So quite a lot of the time I have to step, out of the texture and play my own thing. Whereas if you were playing in the double bass section, for example, that was not going to happen. You're going to be more making your sound part of the group sound. So it's a different answer for every instrument. Anyway, in my case, I've always loved the sound of the woodwind section playing chords. That was one of the things which I remember going to concerts when I was a teenager and just loving the nutty sound of the woodwinds just playing chords like in Beethoven symphonies. So I enjoy that almost as much as playing, the big romantic solos,
Amazing. Oh, look, we've got another poll. Okay, it says, secret facts about Sarah. What she misses about the UK is her mum, her nephew Angus, tea, Marmite, cream eggs, or the weather.
And you can answer more. You can answer more than one here.
That's true. I don't know if you can vote on more than one, but let's see what happens.
It'd be interesting because.
Yeah, maybe you can.
That's an interesting.
Okay, let's see how that goes in a minute. Now, Liza has sent a question in, maybe for you, Sarah. How has your experience with the Berlin Phil changed your musical views?
Gosh, well, my musical views, I'm not quite sure exactly what my musical views. I mean, I love music and I love playing music, and I'm really proud to be a musician. And I'm so proud. I'm proud really every day that I play in this fantastic orchestra. So I think if you're talking about repertoire, we play all sorts of different pieces. And that was a wonderful thing about Sir Simon Rattle, because we played everything from really early music to the most modern music premieres you could even imagine. We have a new conductor now, Kirill Petrenko, who's Russian, and he's bringing us also all sorts of repertoire, some things I've never heard of. So I don't think it hasn't changed my musical views. I still love the same music that I did, but I feel I'm much more open to different pieces, and And I'm just, it sounds maybe like corny or cliche, but I'm just proud every day to play in that orchestra.
Amazing. Right, I think our poll is done. And interestingly, people think you miss cream eggs more than your mum.
Well, actually, well,
so we have got, I don't know if you can see this, but 37% is the winner that think you miss Cadbury's cream eggs the most, followed by 18% Marmite, followed by 15% for your mum, 13% for your nephew, 12% for tea, and 6% for the weather.
Well, we'll start from the back, from the bottom. I don't miss the weather, except it's quite nice right now, isn't it? I don't miss tea because you can get good tea here. But everyone who's voted for the other four things, it's absolutely correct. I miss my mum, I miss my nephew Angus, and I speak to him all the time. Today he was telling me about his puzzles, and he had to show me, and it's like I feel a bit seasick when he's showing me on the phone. He's 4, so he hasn't quite understood the fact you've got to hold the phone still. So I see up his nose a lot. Today in the post, I got sent Marmite because I'd run out of Marmite and the shops are shut, and a Brit can never run out of Marmite. That's just not.
Oh, can I have some? I need some too.
You need some too. Okay, I'll get you some sent. And Cadbury's cream eggs. Well, we just had Easter, and Jonathan and I have often been together at Easter because we have our Easter festival. And you remember in Salzburg, Jonathan, that shop that sold British things, and we got British Easter eggs and cream eggs. We were so happy.
Amazing, brilliant. Okay, so we've got another question from Zoe saying, how did you go about preparing your first professional audition? Do you want to take this one, Jonathan?
Lots of practice, exactly. How did I go about preparing it? Well, I was sent a list of the orchestral excerpts that I had to prepare. This was actually for the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra. That was my first professional audition. The main work I had to do, was to prepare the orchestral excerpts, because the other pieces were Mozart and Strauss concerto, which of course I'd already been practicing the whole time when I was at music college. But the list I was given of orchestral excerpts from CBSO was quite unusual. It wasn't the normal things you'd expect. So I just worked on them as hard as I could. And I didn't just practice, obviously, the notes of the excerpts. I listened to the pieces in recordings. I did a lot of listening, and I listened to different sorts of recordings to get ideas of how other people did it. And then when I made a point of them, when I was playing those excerpts in the audition, of imagining all the other players playing around me, so that I wasn't just completely in isolation. Apart from that, the only other thing you can really do is prepare yourself mentally. So you can really do techniques to help you to focus and to concentrate and not be distracted, because an audition is quite an artificial situation for a musician. You know, you're not really performing in the normal way that you're performing, interacting with other musicians. And what I've found in the auditions I've done in my life is it's always been best if I've treated it like a concert. So I haven't thought about it being an exam, but more of a concert. Yeah, so I suppose that's probably what I'm thinking through.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jonathan. So, another poll. If Jonathan wasn't an oboist, he would like to be a ballet dancer, the head gardener at Kew Gardens, a politician, an opera singer, or a medical researcher. So we'll find out what the answer to that is in a minute.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear that one.
We got a question for you, Sarah, from Georgia Paxton. Do you have any hobbies?
Do I have any hobbies? There's not a lot of time for hobbies with the orchestra and with my online activities. But yes, I love to dance salsa. Do any of you dance salsa? Do any of your parents dance salsa? It's just the best. I love it. And I don't get to do it that often, but I go to Cuba quite a lot because I have a project with young musicians there. And I'm like, please, can you take me out dancing? And yeah, I love to dance.
She's very good. Excellent. So a question now for you, Jonathan, from Eve Ward. What is the hardest piece you've ever had to play in the orchestra? That's a really nice question. I like that.
Gymnopédie after rite of speech.
Yes, you could say that. Actually, the hardest piece, which needed the most work, was a Ligeti violin concerto, because the woodwind parts are not just for your own instrument. You also have to play ocarina, and it's not an ocarina like one of those simple little round ones that you have on a leather strap around your neck. It looks like a submarine, and it's got very complicated fingers. You have to hold it like this.
You
all
can
these
see it on the
fingers.
digital concert hall. You can see
Yes,
them
it's
playing
on
the ocarina.
Look, yeah. That's really hard. So that's very, very hard. But things with the oboe, I always find Mahler 9 really hard, because at the end of the first movement, everything gets really, really quiet. And then the oboe just has to play repeatedly 2 very quiet, low notes. And everyone knows how the oboe sounds when it's trying to play low. It kind of doesn't sound at all. And then it sounds very loud.
Mona.
So I always find that hard. So that needs a bit of preparation. Apart from that, it's all very easy for me now. Not really.
Okay, we've got an answer to your questions here. What did people think? And it's very, very strongly, 70% think you'd like to be the head gardener at Kew. Only 10% think you'd like to be a ballet dancer. 11 a medical researcher. 6% a politician, and 3% an opera singer. So what's the answer?
Well, actually, I'm very disappointed that you don't think I could be an opera singer, because I did study singing for quite a long time. But no, the answer is I would love to be head gardener at Kew Gardens.
It's
Wouldn't that
never
be
too
nice?
late, Johnny. It's never too
Especially
late.
on a day like this. I think I need a bit more knowledge, though. I've got lots of enthusiasm, but not much knowledge.
Great. So Sarah, we've got lots of different children have asked the same question. What is your parrot called?
Oh, my parrot. This is Lolita. And Lolita belongs to my godchild, Alina. And Alina is now 12. But when she was 3.5, she was, I was visiting her in Denmark, where she lives. And I said, and I love parrots anyway. I love all sorts of birds. And then she said, she calls me Sassy because she can't say Sarah. So she said, Sassy, when you go home, she was worried I was going to be lonely. I think she must have been a bit older than 3.5. I think she must have been, she could speak already. And she said, okay, well, she doesn't want me to be lonely. I got back to Berlin, unpacked my suitcase, and she put Lolita in her suitcase. So in my suitcase. So Lolita's been living with me ever since.
Aww,
Johnny, who's there?
Yeah, actually, you were just showing your pet, and my pet's just come in. Shall I show you Harry?
We can't see it just yet, can we? He's got a pole in front of it.
No, I've taken that off.
Oh, good.
Where is he? Harry, come here. Harry, come.
Hello, Harry. Oh, Harry.
Can you see him?
Hello, Harry. You a good boy? Oh.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Oh, that's great. So we've got another poll, Sarah.
Yep.
Sarah's favourite flavour of crisps are?
How did you know I like crisps, Kath?
Well, I don't know. I think when we asked you a few questions, you said your favourite food was crisps and your favourite meal was crisps.
Exactly.
So I think I came down to the conclusion that you quite like crisps.
Yes, I like crisps.
I like crisps too. I'm with you on that. So, people are very confused about what your favourite flavour might be. It might be cheesy Wotsits, it might be ready salted, cheese and onion, or salt and vinegar. So I'll give that one more minute to
it's a confusing question, because actually, I mean, if I could, I'd have all 4, of course, and all together.
Well, we know what to buy you when we next see you. So we've got probably time for 1 or 2 more questions. Freya Garside has asked, when you were young, did you see yourself as a musician in the future, Jonathan?
Yes, I did. I used to tell people when I was a teenager that I was going to be solo oboist of the Berlin Philharmonic.
Aww.
The reason is because my dad had a record collection that was practically only recordings of the Berlin Philharmonic, and my lovely Irish grandmother she'd always say, "Oh, when you're older, you want to play with the Berlin Philharmonic, sure you will." And so that's what I wanted to be. No, I always wanted to be a musician from the moment, well, I suppose from about the age of 14 or 15. But also there were times, especially just after I'd done the school play, when I wanted to be an actor, but generally musician.
Okay, our questions are now flooded, Jonathan, with how old is Harry and what breed is he?
Harry is, he's just looked up, he is 10 years old and he is a Labradoodle, of course.
Oh, great.
He wants to go out now, I'm going to let him out.
Okay. While he's letting him out, we have an answer to the crisps question, which is that 36% think you like cheesy Wotsits best, 28% salt and vinegar, 22% cheese and onion, and 13% ready salted. So where would you come down on your favorite, Sarah?
Well, if I could get cheesy Wotsits, they would be my favorite, but you can't get them here in Germany. So you know what to send me, Marmite and cheesy Wotsits. I love salt and vinegar. So well done to 28% for salt and vinegar.
Great.
But never before you play the French horn.
Yeah.
Or never before you play the oboe, because they get stuck in your teeth and you pant like a dog on stage because you just get so thirsty.
Great. Well, it feels like we could just carry on this conversation forever, but we're nearly out of time. So before I ask you the very final question, I just want to share with everybody the next week's webinar, which is at the same time next Friday, when we're being joined by musicians from the London Symphony Orchestra next week. So we're being joined by Maxine Kwok-Adams, and we're also going to be joined by the amazing Jo Johnson, who is the head of all the digital stuff that goes on at LSO. So she does all they have a kind of equivalent of the digital concert hall there, and they also have something called LSO Play and lots of things that you can engage with. So she's going to be with us on Friday.
That's going to be great. Maxine is the most colorful violinist you will ever meet. And you'll see what I mean when you meet her on the webinar.
Great, yeah. And the following week, we've got a BBC Young Musician focus. So we've got two previous winners of the BBC Young Musician. Peter Moore, who's the trombonist, who was, I think, the youngest ever winner. I think he was 12 or something when he won it, amazingly young. And Jennifer Pike, who was also a winner of the BBC Young Musician. So they're coming up in the following week. And there might be a few others creeping up because everybody's free. So I'm trying to get as many exciting people out to you as possible in this time that we have together. So they're coming up. So as a goodbye to you guys, thank you so much. Would you be able to just share one little piece of advice that you might give our students, or what you might have said to yourself when you were 12, wish you'd known when you were 12, say? Sarah, do you want to go?
Well, I would say decide that you love music. If it's what you want to do, if you decide you want to be a musician, don't let anyone put you off, but you've got to work really hard at it. There's no shortcuts and there's no easy way in. The only thing you can do is work really hard. But if you love something with a passion, playing in the youth orchestra, NYO was my absolute highlight. And I wish there wasn't the National Children's Orchestra. I wish there had been. I would have applied for it straight away. But I wasn't actually playing the horn by then when I was that young. I would just say never give up. Just believe in what you do. Love your instrument, because I promise you, if you're so passionate about what you do and you work really hard at it, it's the best career I could ever imagine doing. If you decide not to be a musician but you love music, that's also fine, and it's just fantastic that you get this training and this love for music at such a young age.
Brilliant. And Jonathan, what would you say?
That is very good advice. I can't really improve on that. I would agree with that, but I would say if there comes a point when you're studying where you're fed up and you want to stop and give up, don't do it. Give yourself maybe a year and then make the decision again. Because I never met a person in my adult life who said to me, oh, do you know what? I'm so glad I gave up the flute or the violin. Everyone regrets it. So I wanted to give up the oboe at one point. And my mum said, no, you can't, because we've already invested too much time and petrol driving you to lessons and things like that. She said, you could stop in a year if you still want to stop. And by then I didn't want to. So I would say, carry on and make sure that you don't make a decision you regret. So yeah, I'd stick that with Sarah's much more positive message.
And Kath, Kath, because I love horn players so much, can I just show them what I brought to show them?
Yeah,
Quick
cool.
show and tell.
Yeah.
I just got sent these shoes. Aren't they cool? They've got horns on them. They're the coolest shoes ever.
Wow.
And then What do you think of those? I'm very proud of those. But for Jonathan, who would have liked to have been an opera singer, I thought I'd put on my horns for you.
Amazing.
Actually,
Right.
no, I want to be head guy of the queue. All my seedlings around me.
Amazing.
Can I keep on my hat for the goodbyes?
Yeah, so
Okay.
thank you guys so much. We have to stop now. I'm so sorry. I feel like we could carry on chatting all day. But we were going to do a little bit of a selfie. Were you going to suggest we did a
Oh,
selfie?
yes, that's right. You know what we do on the horn hangouts? Actually, I'll keep my hat on for this, or maybe I'll regret it. We do a selfie. We do an online selfie. If any of you are, if any of your parents have cameras or something and could do a selfie of you all, we can do it all together, or you just take a screenshot. Look, that's right, Kath. That's
Like
right. That's right. Perfect.
Hold on.
I haven't got my phone, otherwise
I've got to be silly too. I'll put my reeds in.
You put your reeds in, and where's your oboe? There we go. That's perfect. Okay, have you all got your selfie set up? Ready? We go 1, 2, 3. Yoo-hoo!
Great. Let me just take a picture of that quickly. Can you do that again?
1, 2, 3. Yoo-hoo!
Great. Fantastic.
So, Kath, if
Yep.
any of the National Children's Orchestra have taken selfies, maybe they can send them to you and you can see them all.
Yeah, we can share them and share them with you guys and share them on social media. Maybe
That would
people
be
are happy
great.
for us to do that.
Kath, thank you for doing this. It's really
Thank
great what you're doing. And that all your National Children's Orchestra musicians are very, very lucky to have all this going on while they're sitting at home. Don't give up. Keep practicing. Music is the best.
Great. Thank you so much, both of you. See you very soon.
Thanks, Kath. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.